Make your home a place of enjoyment. Don't make it a place of anger or performance. And that short quote is by Sally Clarkson. I actually heard her say that on a podcast just this morning as I was listening to it. I thought it was so good, and I probably need to hang it up somewhere where I see it on the daily. Make your home a place of enjoyment. Don't make it a place of anger or performance.
What kind of performance? What kind of performance, though?
It's just expectations.
Oh,
How you
yeah.
treat others depends on if they measure up to your expectations. I think that's kind of the context of what she was talking about there. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Looking Up. This is a podcast for Christian women. I'm Kathy Pollard, and with me is Carla Moore. We are really looking forward to today's conversation because we're going to talk about the empty nest, and both of us have been in that stage of our lives for a few years now. So I think we're just going to have a chat about what it's been like for us, some of the challenges of the emptiness, some of the blessings of the emptiness, and we hope that you'll stick around for that and that you'll enjoy it. Before we get to that, though, Carla, good to see your face. Your hair looks great.
Thanks.
You're welcome. What have you been up to?
It's been a very quiet last few days since we recorded last. We stayed home this weekend, which doesn't happen very often. And yeah, John's birthday, he turned 60 on Sunday. And I had these big plans to do something for him. I mean, starting last fall, I started thinking, this is what I want to do. And let's just say it didn't work out.
Oh.
Not all of the children were available, and I didn't get, I should have reminded them about the timing situation and all. I'm still going to do it because one of the things that got me thinking about it was when we went to Denny's, not really retirement, but when they did the shindig for him back at lectureship last year, John actually spoke to him and said, why do we wait for people to die before we say good things about them? And it was a little funny at the time, because we're there to celebrate Denny, but I thought that is so true. And I wanted to do something for him where, people had the opportunity to tell him how he has impacted their lives, because I know he's impacted a lot of lives. So still going to do it. He doesn't listen to this podcast, so he won't hear me say this because he probably wouldn't want me to do that, but I'm going to do it probably later this spring, early summer, and just it'll be his 60 and a quarter birthday celebration, something like that.
60 years. How's that make you feel?
It's bizarre. Like, we've been together since he was 19 and I was 16. So that's 41 years. We've been married almost 39. So, to me, he's the same and better. Just, you have a little more gray hair but you know how it is. You're married a long time and you know everything about each other. You know each other's distant family. You just have history together. And it's such a blessing. And you share. What's really cool now too, as you have learned, is sharing the grandchildren. It's like you have this, you're crazy about these little people. And the only other person that really gets that is Neil for you and John for me. So anyway, that's kind of a long ramble, but birthday was the main thing that was on the agenda this weekend. He just had a quiet birthday. I made his favorite meal, made him a coconut pie, and he preached on Sunday, so he was working that day, but it was a good day.
Good. So did he have tacos or what?
Tacos.
Nice.
And HEB, as you know how much Neil loves HEB, and I know you like it too, but they have a I don't know if it's a section or a brand of food. It's called Mi Tienda. And because San Antonio is the hub of HEB, and that's a very Hispanic area and all the Mexican food. So I bought like 3 different salsas, like a tomatilla salsa and a guacamole type salsa. And those were fresh, they do them fresh in the store. And then they have these little squeeze bottles with green sauce, like mole sauce. And so I had all of the stuff to go in it, and crema, which is like a Mexican sour cream. And anyway, it was a good meal. It was just him and me, but it was good.
Aww.
And coconut pie. So I don't know if there's still left in the refrigerator. I'm going to go see after we finish recording. He may have finished it off. Anyway, how was your trip?
It was great. Our weather here has been so crazy and gray and rainy, and we just kept saying the whole time, I just hope the weather cooperates because we intended to spend our days hiking the canyon, and that's really what we wanted to do. And I just knew it wasn't going to work out, and we'd spend most of our time in the cabin, which would also be nice. But we had the best weather. And when we kept looking at the forecast, the first couple of days were supposed to be iffy. And then the last couple of days just right. Well, the whole trip was just right. We never had an iffy day. The only thing we experienced is when we were driving there, we went to Red River Gorge, which is
What
about
part
an
of
hour.
Kentucky is that?
It's an hour from Lexington, but I'm not sure which direction. So it's about 3.5 hours from here.
Okay.
And on that drive, it was a little bit cloudy, but that was it. And so we just had mild weather. It was that perfect hiking weather because it was kind of chilly in the morning, but we had full sunshine. We had blue skies. It was, by mid morning, you're taking off your sweatshirt and enjoying the sun on your skin. And we hiked every day, and we would cook breakfast in the cabin. And then we'd hike all day long, and then we'd come back in the evening. We'd grab something to eat out, and then we'd come back and just relax, And so it was perfect. It was just a little
pretty heavenly.
Yeah, just a kind of getaway that just makes you ready to come back and be better about everything because you had a little break and it felt good. So
you sometimes just need a little regrouping and reconnecting and just time without distraction. Sounds like you had that.
Well, we haven't gotten away too much together since we've had Peaches because, when you're milking a cow, it's a big deal. You can't.
Yeah.
Jeremy has taken care of her for us twice, I think, in the 18 months we had her. A Florida trip for our anniversary and the cruise that we did with you guys. So, it's just a big ask. And so we haven't been away together a lot. And now that we don't have her anymore, that was really easy to do. So Gary and Chelsea took care of the chickens, and we take Ollie with us, which made the trip extra
I saw him
special.
on a leash in a picture. I was glad he went with you.
Yeah. So anyway,
okay.
It was
good. Let's talk about what we talked about before we hit record, and just curious about other people's experience. Did you say it was VRBO or Airbnb?
It was VRBO.
Okay. And they wanted you to, when you were leaving, to strip the beds and wash the sheets. And we haven't stayed in too many like Airbnb, but we've stayed in timeshares and stuff. And they ask you to throw all the towels and the sheets maybe in the bathtub to have everything ready for them to wash. But they wanted you to wash the sheets. So I'm just kind of curious what everybody thinks about that.
Yeah. And my advice from now on would be because the list is hanging on the refrigerator of things you do before you check out. And all I did was make a mental note. There's the list. And usually it's, take out the trash, don't leave any perishables in the fridge, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And like you said, normally you just gather up the sheets and towels and put them wherever they tell you to. But this one said, strip the bed and wash the sheets and towels. And so, and we didn't really look at that list until we were packing everything up and getting ready to go. And you have to be out by a certain time. And so then we were in panic mode because I was like, whoa, we're supposed to wash this. So, and it was one of those energy efficient washing machines. So it took forever. I mean, we were down the wire. Yeah. Neil is going, we have to be out of here in 2 minutes, trying to get out of there. But that was kind of unusual. And you really need to know that ahead of time because it affects your whole morning. If you're going to cook breakfast, you're going to use the towels in the kitchen. What time you shower, you use all those things. And even after we threw things in the wash, I brush my teeth, I use the restroom. And so I'm running in the kitchen trying to grab a paper towel, to blot my mouth and my face and all these things. So.
Well, I'm just curious how normal that is. I'm going to have to ask Jake and Liz, our middle son, they have it's through Airbnb, but it's called Skyrun, all of the properties they have in Broken Bow. And I've never heard of having to actually wash the sheets. And I mean, like you said, if you know ahead of time, you can kind of plan ahead of time. I don't mind getting things ready. They have a cleaning crew. There's a woman that has a cleaning business that they work with. And the way they kind of describe it to me is as soon as the people check out, they come in and clean things. And it's I've also seen interesting reels and videos about things that people leave behind in Airbnbs, and it's pretty interesting. But
Yeah.
it's
We've
interesting.
stayed in a few of these before and never had to wash the items before we left. And Neil does it every time he goes to Texas. He'll find a
Yeah.
VR, something from VRBO or whatever.
Hmm.
And he's never been asked to do that before either. So it caught us,
Yeah.
excuse me, it caught us off guard and
Yeah.
put us in a panic mode there, but that was
Yeah.
okay. That
Oh
was
well.
okay. That was the only, everything else was great about
Hmm.
it. It was beautiful, clean, spacious cabin, good location. So everything else was
Yeah.
great, but we should have read the list as soon as we got there. So
Yeah.
we would have known
I'll
what we
probably be
didn't.
an extra, but I just think to myself, if I'm paying a cleaning fee already,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to call Alyssa after this is over and see what she thinks about that. Maybe it's a normal thing.
I don't know.
I don't
I don't
either.
know. Well, we have a couple of special things this weekend. One of them's not really a big deal, but I'm gonna share it anyway. I am coming up on my 1 year no dye anniversary.
Hmm.
So by the time this airs, it will have already happened, and that's March 16th. It will have been a whole year since I've colored or done anything to my hair.
Yeah.
So I can't believe it's already been a year. And I
I
thought
remember us
for
talking about it at
sure,
Equipped.
yeah, I thought for sure it would look a lot different than it does now.
What did you think it would look like?
More gray. I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely have plenty of gray sparkle. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't know it was
Hmm.
going to be as dark. But
I'm surprised you were able to get your hair as blonde as it was. With your hair as dark as it is,
mhm,
surprised it held the blonde.
yeah. Well, I've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, every now and then I would go dark just for something different, and it wouldn't hold the color because most of my hair was bleached.
Hmm.
Highlighted sounds better, but bleached is what you're
Yeah.
doing to your hair. And then the other thing is way more important, and that is our granddaughter is having her 1 year birthday
Hmm.
on the 15th. So
Yeah.
I think that's Saturday. By the time this airs, it'll have already passed, but
Yeah.
we're going to celebrate her, and already a year old.
Is she
And
walking?
she is not walking yet.
Hmm.
She's getting plenty of personality. For the longest time, she just kind of smiled at everybody all the time. She's just now really starting to,
Hmm.
like want a little bit more attention and,
Yeah.
like, hey, but we were talking to Gary and Chelsea about it last night. She's just now like, hey, I can get some attention.
Hmm.
But now her mom's fixing to have another baby. So
Yeah.
it's like, you waited a little long for this. And
Yeah.
now you're
She's
fixing to
got
be
a
the middle child.
with her big brother full of personality too. So
Yeah. Yeah. But
well, that's
1
exciting.
year, yeah.
Doesn't seem like it's been that long.
No.
Well, we went to my brother's house. Yes, my brother that does the videos. They invited us over for John's birthday. And it was just the four of us, and we have rarely done that over the years. We've always had our kids, and I was laughing when we walked in the door because just it made me remember when we would go over there when the kids were little, and we'd open the door, and of course the boys would just rush past me to get to the whatever game they wanted to play with Reagan and Lauren, and it's just so different now, which is kind of what we're talking about, empty nest stuff, how different things are, but how good they can be too, because we just had a good time with them. And Karen she knows what John likes, and it was a taco type thing, but it was Doug grilled chicken. So it was like chicken fajitas and
Oh,
all
yum.
of the good toppings. And she made a fun cake and it had the big 60 on the top of it. And so
Oh,
it was just
very
kind of it
nice.
was a fun night. And
Yeah.
we just
That
haven't
was
done much of
thoughtful
that.
of them.
Yes,
Mhm.
it was. I
When
can't
that
say that very much
happens,
about Doug, but Karen is very thoughtful.
that's right. He's a different kind of thoughtful.
Yes, it does lots of
He's
thinking.
definitely thinking about you.
Yeah, in a whole lot of different ways than
That's
Karen
right.
does.
Uh, well, I actually got outside this morning
Hmm.
because, this is our first morning back, and it's another gorgeous day and it's warm out there and the sun is shining. And I went out there and gave some attention to the raised beds, and I was carrying around a 5-gallon bucket and filling it with little weeds that I was pulling, and I went and gave them to the chickens, and they're happy. Even the chickens love it. The weather warms up. And when they had just started laying again before we left, and we had been gathering enough, kind of slowly collecting enough to where we were able to take eggs with us to cook for breakfast in the cabin. But when we got back, the basket was full. And so they are full on, like most of them are laying every day now. So we're back to, getting
fresh eggs,
multiple eggs a day, and not just one or two here and there. So the chickens are laying, and things are starting to green up, and it's my favorite time of year. We do have some, I think we've got some bummer weather coming this weekend, but
there's always still nice. Be one more.
Hurrah. That's right.
Well, speaking of eggs, I went to the grocery store this weekend, and I hadn't bought eggs in a while. And what I normally get is the extra large 18 count. And they probably, used to be like 3.18 is what I think they used to be, what I'd pay for them pretty regularly. They were $9.54.
Yikes.
For 18 eggs. So that's like 50 cents an egg. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's okay. But I bought them in a bag, and then John always brings the groceries in from the car. And he's not usually just very, very
gentle,
cautious or gentle with how he dumps them on the counter. And I was standing next to the island when he brought, he's got to bring 17 bags in one trip. And he flops them down on the island. And we both heard the eggs. They went on their side and then flipped over on the top. And we look at each other.
Oh, yikes.
And he looks at me and he says, those were eggs, weren't they? And I said, mm-hmm. He said, maybe we're going to have scrambled eggs tonight. None of them broke, thankfully, but he was about to be in trouble.
Crazy. No wonder everybody's joking about, if somebody really loves you, they'll buy you some eggs, or gift wrap an egg, or
we take credit card, cash, and eggs.
That's right.
But all is well.
Oh, good.
Can't complain.
Good. Hey, you'll appreciate this. Alicia Pennington, I think you saw her post about how somebody at our local college is WKU, and somebody, I think it was a group of somebody's, wrote the whole Gospel of John on the sidewalks on the college campus, and it stretches a pretty good ways. But I was kind of looking at some of the different pictures. Somebody, and a couple of different people in the local Bowling Green group also took pictures of it and were posting it. And to me, it looks like, it's done in chalk, and there's artwork around each chapter break, but the font is different. And I don't know if that's one person taking on a monumental task and changing up the font, or if it's a group of people got together and they each did, which is probably what happened. They each took a section. But I thought that was really great. And
did it just happen overnight?
It happened overnight, apparently. And it was the Gospel of John. And
had to have been more than one person then.
I think so too. And there's a great big religious group that has a presence on campus that does a lot of things together, and I imagine that's who did it, but I'm not 100% sure. It's a little bit of a mystery, and I look forward to seeing what they find out.
Very cool.
Isn't that neat? What a fun surprise to wait. I just can't imagine waking up and seeing that. I thought it was amazing.
Very well done.
I was glad Alicia took pictures and shared it.
Yeah. Does she work there? Okay.
Yeah. So, but I probably shouldn't have said who I thought did it, because I'm probably wrong. I don't know. But it made me think about, was that last episode or the one before, we had the conversation about the water fountains in the church building?
Last one, yeah.
Yeah. And I said something about, I think we only got one up now and we'll get another one later. I was wrong.
Well, you gotta have something to humble you, right?
We already have two up now. And one of them, you know how when you go to an airport or certain places, you can fill your water bottle, like you just set it there and the water starts streaming. One of them is one of those, and it even has that count at the top that tells you how many plastic bottles you've saved the planet.
Nice.
It's already doing the running tally of that. So.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I wanted to give a little update about Alice because she's been, it's been about, I guess it's been about a month to 6 weeks since she found out that she was going to have to do the transplant process again. So she's been having chemo there in Lubbock where she lives every week, I believe, every week to kind of, get her body ready for the process again. And they came to Houston on Sunday and met with the doctors yesterday. And I know she was anticipating going home because we were supposed to have breakfast together this morning. But Paul texted yesterday and said that they had seen the doctor and they went ahead and admitted her yesterday and are going to go ahead and get going on the process. They're going to do a 5-day really intensive chemo there in the hospital and possibly even have to do that one more time before they start the transplant process. So she's there again for the long haul, for the chemo before the transplant, and then once the transplant happens, then they start counting like 100 days after that. So she's there for probably about 4 months, and just the thought of going through all that, I worry about her emotional state, and Paul too, just knowing how sick she's going to be again. And so just more prayers. I just ask for on their behalf and their family, and they're off work again. So there's all kinds of different strain that comes as a result of this. So I just ask for prayers on behalf of Paul and Alice.
Okay. Yeah. I can't even imagine.
I know, it's hard stuff.
It is. I'm sorry. We will definitely be praying for her.
Thank you. But that's all I have, chit chat wise.
Did you pay attention to what time we started yakking by any chance?
I did not.
Ooh, I didn't either.
I'm gonna guess 20 minutes.
Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about the empty nest, and like I said, we're just going to keep it really casual and kind of share our experiences. I was kind of.
So we're not going to cry.
We're not going to cry. No.
Okay. All right.
Right.
I'm not planning on it.
Are you feeling weepy?
No.
Okay. One of my assignments in 2019 was speaking on the topic of the empty nest, and I kind of laughed. I went back and looked at it to see if I wanted to use any of that material, and I don't think I will, but I kind of laughed looking back because I had only been an empty nester for a year when I presented that material, and so we became empty nesters in 2018, which makes it, well, it was late summer of 2018. So we're coming up on 7 years? We're about 6.5 years in. How about you? How long have y'all been official empty nesters?
Since the summer of 2016. So going on 9 years.
Okay. Ours caught us a little bit by surprise because Carl went ahead and moved across country when he was only 19. So his brothers, were around a little bit longer, but he was younger when he started everything and younger and decided to go to Bear Valley. And so he was only 19 when he left, and he was our youngest. So it was late June of 2018. And all right, so similar times. And so I thought we would talk about if there's going to be a negative side of it, it's the fact that there might be some surprises or things that you didn't expect or some challenges. And I thought we would talk about that side of it first and then come around and talk about the blessings of being in the empty nest phase of life so that we can leave everybody with, the good vibes and something to look forward to. So I thought we would start off with the challenges and maybe just a little note here for anybody listening who is not yet an empty nester. If you've chosen to listen to this anyway, first of all, I'm glad because I think it's good to learn about what you might expect. I know it's different for everybody, but what you might expect. But I would also like to say, I just thought I would start out with keep strengthening your marriage now. That's just, I was given that advice. I don't know that I handled it as well as I should have, but you want to keep strengthening your marriage now so that when your kids leave home and it's just the two of you, you're not looking at a stranger and having to get to know each other all over again, because there's already going to be a lot of changes. And the last thing you want is to have a marriage that's less than in that time of your life. So, but here are some of the things, and you add in what you think have been challenges for you guys. If you had any, maybe you didn't have any challenges at all, right?
No, I mean, no, there were challenges.
There were challenges. The first one I thought of was, and this was not an issue when I had that PTP lesson. The first one I thought of was perimenopause. Seems like it happens around the same time.
Yeah.
Or at least close to that phase of life. Now, that whole hormone thing is different for everybody, but it can be anywhere. The average duration of perimenopause is anywhere from 5 to 10 years. And so that's a big, wide swath, and usually somewhere in that 5 to 10 year range, you're also becoming an empty nester. So in addition to your schedule and your day to day looking different, your body's changing, your hormones are wreaking havoc on your emotions. And so I would just throw this out there. For me personally, one of the biggest challenges, I wasn't even aware of some of the things that I was experiencing because of starting to go through this perimenopause journey was affecting how I felt toward my own husband. And I know I've mentioned, briefly some of these things before, but little bitty things, like all of a sudden it drove me crazy the way he ate his food. And like I could hear him and I was like, why does it sound like you're chewing on a rubber band when you're eating? It was just, and I was like, wow, that's loud, and I'm just, while we're eating, I'm like looking at him like, what is wrong with you? Why did
the
you
radio on?
It was like, all of a sudden it was this new thing. He just all of a sudden started making noise while he was, and that's just one little example, but there were just these little things that I felt like I just became aware of and what's going on. And you've not always been this way. And it took me a while to realize it wasn't him, it was me. And that I became, more irritable, more emotional, more whatever goes on when your hormones are not where they're supposed to be. And so that ended up playing a big part in my relationship with my own husband, and becoming aware of it and realizing what was going on, oh, wait a second, maybe it's not really him. Maybe I'm struggling with the hormones right now. That just played a huge part in it. And even though Neil was pretty gracious about it, like he didn't throw it in my face, it did play a part. And it did create some challenges that we had to work through. So
I think some of that was, though, because before you had three little guys that had your attention, as far as at meal times, you're serving them, or they're the ones laughing and talking over the table, and the whole time Neil's always chewed like he's chewed a rubber band or whatever it was that you said, but you just weren't focused on that because there's so much activity at the table anyway, and then afterwards it's just the two of you, and you don't have that same kind of level of activity.
Yeah, that's true. And your attention is taken away when you're taking care of kids. And then when they're not there anymore, I guess you have more quiet or time to notice things. That's a good point. But along with that, when you think about changes that happen, is your parents start going through changes and aging difficulties. And a lot of times you're also concerned about them or anxious about them or trying to figure out the best care for them. And, that's a big deal. And that's another big change. And it can be a big stressor in life. And so all of this stuff kind of happens around the same time. And I think that can make this time of life challenging. One of the other things that I really noticed as far as my big struggle personally was, you mentioned the kids no longer being around. I didn't realize how much they were of a spiritual filter for me when it comes to thinking of choosing my words carefully, choosing my tone, carefully in how I speak to my husband, because I didn't want to speak disrespectfully to him in front of my kids. I didn't want to backtalk my husband in front of my kids. I wasn't going to disagree with him in front of them. I might have words later behind closed doors, but I was never going to do that in front of my children.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize how much of a just like automatic natural filter it was to have them there and always aware of their presence. So the things I chose to say and the things I chose to just ignore or let go, that changed. And I remember at one point when we were fighting about something, I'm sure extremely dumb, that I said something like, I am so done. And I just remember thinking, oh, I can't believe I said that, because early on, we decided that we weren't going to use words like that. We weren't going to ever bring up the option of divorce. We weren't, we just weren't going to introduce those kinds of things. And I don't even know what I was peeved about. I know I was annoyed. I'm sure I was angry. I'm sure I was so upset and, felt like I was in the right to say that. But I said that. And I think that was the first time it really kind of smacked me in the face of, I need to be careful because I'm gonna undo a lot of things in our marriage that we've spent years doing just because I feel so much freer saying what I think and what I feel and that's a big deal. And so that one, those two things, I think, and they may be tied to each other. I don't know. The hormone changes and losing the natural filter of having the kids around when it came to my own attitude and word choice and tone. Those were the two biggest challenges for me when it came to the empty nest. How about
I never even thought about the filter part. That's interesting. Challenges. I guess when I was thinking of this, I tended to think more along the lines of what was painful about it. When they started getting to that age. So there's quite an age difference between Jordan was born in 89 and Micah was born in 98. So I have one born in 89, one in 91, and one in 98. So when Jordan decided what he was going to do, he decided he'd go to school at Texas State, which is just 35, 40 minutes down the road. And so I wasn't worried about it because that was where I grew up in San Marcos. I mean, that was where my dad and where John both were. They were the campus minister, worked for the campus ministry there at Texas State. And so it was like I knew where he was going to be. I had this picture in my mind of the campus and McCarty Student Center where I knew he'd be involved. And so I wasn't really dreading it. He wanted to live on campus, which I agreed. I thought that was good, It cost more, but he paid a lot of it on his own. Had some scholarships. He worked and paid, and we paid some. And but I do remember the summer before we had gone. I remember one thing in particular, although there were many things that led up to this. Riding in the back of a car with him, we had gone out to Lake Buchanan with some friends, and I was sitting next to him in the back of the car, and it was the summer after graduation, but it was before he went to school. And just having that cold water realization of it's not going to be like this anymore. It's never going to be like this again. And I remember saying that to a friend, Carol Tisdale, and she said, oh, she laughed. She said, he'll be back. But, he came back one summer, but then the rest of the summers he stayed on campus and then he got married. And I was right. It never was the same again. And, but that was okay because, we raised them to be independent. That's what we intended all along, was for them to grow up, move out, have a family of their own, and do the same thing that we did. That's the way God intends for families, Christian families, to grow and reproduce and have more people that are in the world to influence for good. But there is that sense of it's never going to be like this again. I remember another time that we were all in our bedroom, and Jordan was probably a junior in high school. And they were always underfoot. For some reason, they always wanted to shower in our shower. And there was always one of them, and it seemed like it was always Jordan, laying on the floor, waiting for me to finish my shower so he could get in there. Like he would just come in and lay on the floor and just silly things like that. But this one occasion in particular, the three of the boys were wrestling on a couch that was in our bedroom, and legs are flying and feet and dirty clothes and stinky boys and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just sitting there kind of rolling my eyes. And I remember Jordan walking over to me and kind of getting right in my face. And he started singing that song, "You're Gonna Miss This." That I think it's Trace Adkins. "You're gonna miss this. You're gonna want this back. You're gonna wish these days hadn't gone by so fast." And he got me there. But what I learned, and I know this is kind of where we're going with this, is yes, it is not ever going to be the same, but that's okay, because there are new things for them coming along, new things for us coming along, because thank God John and I had stayed close. We had stayed connected. And like what you said is so, so true. If you don't get so distracted with your kids that when they are gone one day, you look at each other and you're looking at a stranger because you have not remained friends, or because you have been so distracted and focused on the little people that live in your house that become big people and then they leave, and then you have no relationship. So it's a briefly sad time when they first leave. At least it was for me. But then it's so fun to see who they become as an adult and see how they grow and change, and they become your friends. There's that saying about you can't really be your child's friend. And I know you can to a certain extent, but you really do become friends when they grow up and become adults, and it's just a different relationship. So anyway, my challenges more were feelings, I guess, than anything else. Temporary.
Yeah. And it is beautiful. And I was gonna kind of touch on that in the second half of it, but that's good because it fits here too. I remember when Gary left, leading up to it, it's in your mind, it's all the lasts. This is the last time that we'll all be in worship together, just like this. And this is the last this and this, and feeling that kind of emotional weight, on your heart with every single one of those as it's getting closer and closer and closer. And when we dropped him off, we drove to Montgomery, Alabama. We were in Colorado at the time. We drove him to Montgomery, Alabama, because he started out at Faulkner, and we dropped him off there. And I cried. It was a long road trip. And I cried all the way home. I mean, I just looked out the window and I kind of pull myself together, and then I'd think about something else and tears would be streaming down my cheeks again. And then I'd pull myself together and I'd have another memory, and I'd all the way home. And then when we got home, the very first thing I did was walk upstairs and go straight to Gary's bedroom, which he did not clean before he left, by the way, and dropped to my knees. And I just laid my head on his bed and bawled some more. And I thought, this is just so wrong. And I remember when Gary was a baby. So he was born in 93. So he went off to college in 2012. But when he was a baby, a friend of mine took me out to lunch, and her son was just getting ready to go off to college. And I remember saying to her, I can't imagine, I just can't imagine what you must be feeling right now. And I'm holding my small baby, just getting started. And she had made the comment, oh, God knows what he's doing. And by the time they're supposed to go off to college, you are ready for them to go off to college. And I remember holding my sweet little baby going, wow, I will never be ready. And in a really big way, that was true. Because obviously my children weren't perfect and there were moments of aggravation along the way, but I was not ready. And it was hard to drop him off. And, just driving away and he's standing there You're looking as long as you can while he's standing there.
Yep.
And it just, just wrenches your heart in pieces. But like you said, it's coming, and this is what you're bringing them up for. And the podcast that I was listening to, I quoted Sally Clarkson in the beginning. Let me just go ahead and say it's a really good podcast because Lisa Bass of Farmhouse on Boone was interviewing Sally Clarkson, who wrote all those books that I love, The Life-Giving Table, The Life-Giving Home. And so she was just talking about all kinds of things, how they raise their children. And Sally Clarkson said that somebody had asked her one time, how do you control your adult children? What? Yeah. And she said, we didn't raise them to control them as adults. She said that our relationship with them as adults is that we want to support them. We want to be there for them and encourage them. And every now and then bribe them. We might send them a gift card to a coffee shop and say, treat yourself. Everybody needs a little break, or something like that. And she said, but we didn't raise them to control them. And so it's a really great interview about different personalities of your kids and how quickly that growing up phase goes by and, what they did, with each of their, it's a really great interview, but I thought it was so timely because I knew we were going to be talking about this, and she had some really good things to say. But to me, the word that came to mind was bittersweet.
Yeah.
When you think about this phase, because there's this sentimental side of all the closed chapters. And I heard the same thing you did. People were saying, oh, they'll be back. And whether they do or not, it's still a closed chapter.
Yeah,
and it's just different because even if they do, they're adults and the relationship, hopefully still close and loving, but it's just different. It's just changed. Bittersweet because of all of that, but also sweet because of some of the things that you've already mentioned and seeing them in their own adult lives, starting their own families, walking their own path that God has put them on is amazing. Amazing. And that's what I'm hoping we'll talk about in a few more minutes.
Yeah.
Do you have any more challenges? I have a couple of things that I'll throw in, but go ahead and talk.
Well, I do think about how each one was different. Each goodbye, each closed chapter for each boy. I remember thinking in particular with both Jordan and Jacob, that the summer before they left, you find, or at least we did, found myself becoming more and more, just loving them more and more and more. Like I just wanted to put my arms around them and just squeeze them, and couldn't tell them enough how much I loved them. But also in about a month before they left, God does something, and you're ready for them to go. At least I was. It's just that pulling and stretching and just knowing that the next thing is coming, and it's exciting, but it's scary. And I don't know, in particular, I guess with boys, I feel like there's something going on in them that they know, okay, I got to do this. It's like stepping out of the nest, and I've got to fly. And in particular with Jake, he went to Harding, and you were talking about crying all the way home. So John and me and Micah all drove him to Harding. We had two cars. Jake's in his car, and I typically rode with him, and John and Micah in the other car with all of the stuff. And every time we go through Waco, I see this restaurant we stopped at that I cried at because we were on our way. But leaving him was difficult because there was circumstances that I won't go into that made it, it was 10 hours away. It was one thing, but there were circumstances that made it a little bit more difficult. And we all three cried all the way home. And then I had car trouble in Hope, Arkansas, and got stuck there for about 4 days. But it was just different with Jordan. Like I said, being closer distance wise, I knew we'd get to see him more often, but it was still different. It was still difficult. Jake was further away, and in some ways we felt like we pushed him out of the nest, although he took off and flew well. And then with Micah, that was the summer that we had decided to make our change. And in January of 2017, we were going to Denver, so things were changing for us. And I remember feeling like we're going off and abandoning him. So my point is that each situation is different. So you and I can say, this is what we experience, but everyone out there that might be listening is going to have a different experience. But the main thing for me, and this may be going off into the blessings thing, but what I learned with Jordan is that it's going to be okay. Yeah, it's going to hurt and it's going to sting and you're going to cry and it's going to be different and it's not ever going to be the same again, but that's okay because it's not supposed to be. Today was not the same as yesterday. It's never going to be the same as yesterday. But we're moving toward a goal, and that goal is heaven. And if we keep that in mind all the way through raising the children, it's so easy to get caught up in what is it they say, that the days are long, but the years are short. And if we don't take mind of that and don't pay attention to that and don't remember that obviously you can't remember that every minute of every day, but when your goal is to raise your children to be independent Christians who are faithful to God, then at that 18-year mark or whatever it is, you can take satisfaction in knowing that I've done what God wanted me to do. And I have confidence that they're going to mess up some, but they're going to make the right choices overall. And it's going to be okay. That's the main thing for me. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, it is. And all of our boys chose very long distance things when they left. So that aspect of it was not great. But like you said, every situation is different. And I was thinking about the fact that even their own personalities, we had 3 boys like you did, of course, and raised in the same home, but their personalities are different. And how they, I'm thinking back to the day, like the time, the moment when you're actually having the final goodbye, and how each of them reacted slightly different, and you could tell they were all sad, in some ways, but also excited. Even if there were tears, you could tell there was that little bit of excitement because now their adventure is starting. And I think that's one of those, things that makes it easier on the mama's heart is knowing, and we've only had boys, but from the girl's perspective, I was a girl. I went off to college.
That's true.
And I remember when my parents drove off, I went to my dorm room and I had a good cry. And I thought, I can't believe they've just left me and I'm here and I'm doing this by myself. I didn't know really anybody at school, And but
that didn't take long.
That didn't take long. I had that one cry, and then things just happened. Life just happened so fast in college, and that was it. I was okay. And and the same thing happens with our kids most of the time. But this episode is really for Sherry Simpson and everybody else, but she's the one who her youngest daughter is getting married this weekend. And she will officially be an empty nester. And I think about somebody in her situation. Also, she has 2 girls, and a girl's relationship with her mama is different. I think boys are close to their mamas, and then things kind of change when they get married. And girls' relationships with their mamas are different in a lot of cases. And she is very close to both of her girls, very close. I just love seeing their relationship. And so I know there's going to be a lot of sentiment, with this wedding this weekend and the next chapter and what that looks like. But I also know that it's going to be wonderful because she's going to be able to watch her girls and they'll keep her a part of their life and, the new chapter for them and their excitement with their marriages and all, and it'll all be beautiful. But, you and I have been through it. And when you see a mama who is excited for her child, but at the same time knowing she's going to bawl her eyes out because she's going to miss it,
Yep. Yep.
we can relate and we remember what that was like. And there is heartbreak and all of that, but that's how God designed it. And I think about when our babies, like our last child, we knew was going to be our last child. Lord willing, assuming all that kind of stuff. We knew that Carl was going to be our last one. And so with all of the baby milestones, it wasn't just a baby milestone, it was the last baby milestone. This is the last first tooth. This is the last diaper. This is the last, everything with Carl was the last. So the whole babyhood was sentimental. But that doesn't mean I wanted him to stay a baby. That would be weird. Of course, wanted him to grow to the next phase. I didn't want him to stay a baby forever. I was ready for him to become a toddler. And then I didn't want him to stay a toddler forever. I was ready for, because that's the natural course of things. And even though a lot of it is bittersweet through all those chapters, what's ahead is just more exciting and beautiful in most cases than you can imagine because you haven't experienced it before. But we're kind of jumping ahead. One of the other challenges that I thought of was that you and your husband might have different ideas of what this time is going to look like.
I've heard you say that before. Yeah.
So what I envisioned the emptiness looking like and what Neil envisioned didn't quite mesh up. And it never even dawned on me that we should probably have some communication about it. So that was something to kind of work through. And it's a good idea to kind of say, hey, what did, you might think, oh, now you've got all this time, so you can get a job and make more money. So we're not financially strapped. Or, oh, you've got more time. So I'd really like for you to quit your job so we can have more time together and travel. You just don't know, unless you're talking about it. So it's a good idea to start having those conversations ahead of time. And because you might both be envisioning something completely different.
So what was your idea of what it was going to be like?
I just thought that we would have way more time. I don't know why, and that's so funny because somebody came up to me not long after we became empty nesters and said something along the lines of, I'm sure you feel at loose ends and wonder what your purpose is in life and you're not really sure how to fill your time. And I remember going, what?
Yeah.
Because I've never felt at loose ends. I've never sat around twiddling my thumbs wondering what in the world I'm supposed to be doing with my life. I didn't struggle with that. And I guess this person made that assumption because I was a stay-at-home mom and we homeschooled. And, since my children left home, what's the point of my life anymore? I don't know. But that just wasn't a thing, but I think I just thought, well, now the kids are gone, it'll just be me and Neil, and we'll be spending all this time together. And it didn't quite turn out that way because, life still goes on and you're still busy and you still have responsibilities and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, one other challenge that I thought of that I don't know that I particularly, maybe I did. I don't know. I guess I could ask the boys. But I think I've seen this in other people. And I think that you can really, if you're not careful, you can take away from their excitement and their joy and their accomplishments and their feelings about this next step by always saying, I'm just going to miss you so much. I can't believe it's all over. I don't know what I'm going to do without you here. All these things that moms might say. And we intend well, we want to communicate to our child that we're going to miss them or that, oh, it's a new chapter for you and for me. But if we focus so much on how I'm feeling about your next step, I think it can really kind of squash some of their, do they feel free to be excited in front of you? Or are they going to be worried about you being crushed because they're about to leave? Are we able to say things to them like, this is so exciting, or what do you think you're going to do about this? Or how, I think that we forget sometimes that we can be really selfish and not even realize we're being selfish by maybe it's oversharing our feelings, or maybe it's just not considering how they're feeling right now, because yeah, it's going to be, they might be homesick, but they probably don't know that right now. All they're looking forward to is a little bit more independence, or new faces, or a new school, or friends, or whatever it is. And yet what we're giving them cause to worry about us, or just, I just don't want to rob their joy. I think we need to be careful not to rob the joy that they might be feeling.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And along those lines is, how often to reach out to them after they left home. I don't know if that, I mean, I didn't know that that was something to figure out, and all I knew was I was not going to smother them.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be one of those parents that felt the need to call every day and how are you doing? And did you do this? And I just thought this is their time and I'm going to let them set the pace for how often they hear from mama, kind of a
Yeah.
thing. And I'll let them be the one to reach out. But I'll never forget one time Carl, he moved to Alabama. And of course, he was the youngest when he left, but still, it had been a few months had gone by. And one time he just asked me, he said, "Do you not miss me?" I said, "What?" He said, "You don't ever call me or anything." And I was like, "Oh no."
Oh man,
And I
step on a
just,
mama's heart.
I felt horrible, and I was like, "Of course I miss you. I just wanted you to be the one to set the pace there. I figured if you
Yeah.
needed me, you would call, or if you wanted to talk, you would call, and
Mhm.
whatever you wanted that to look like, I would just accommodate, but he
Yeah.
was, I guess I went too far because he was like, "Do you not miss
Mhm.
me?" So,
Did you see personality affecting how each one of them handled leaving leaving home? Like you're kind of just saying Gary was a certain way and Dale was a certain way and Carl was a certain way. Does
mhm.
personality affect mine? I think it did mine.
Yeah, I definitely do. And I don't know that I would have guessed it ahead of time. You
Yeah.
know, Gary has always been demonstrative with his words, like he would say, "I love you, thank you," and all that kind of stuff. He was pretty quiet on the trip down. It wasn't until that goodbye hug,
Mm.
and then when we got in the car, as we were driving off, I saw his face just crumble. It was happening.
Oh,
It was happening.
wow.
That's what I kept seeing all the way home. Um, and then with Dale, he was a wreck.
He's an
he,
emotional guy.
he was a wreck, and he had stayed home 2 years longer because he went through the school at Bear Valley,
Hmm.
and so he was home longer. But when he moved, he was moving to South Georgia from
Yeah.
Colorado, so he
Far.
had the U-Haul, everything loaded up. And the morning it was time to leave. He walked outside. We're waiting up, by the vehicle. He walked outside and his eyes were puffy and he
Yeah.
had already been crying, and he could hardly talk. And the goodbye hugs were awful. He was just,
Mm.
and he was fine, I think he just needed to have that moment. He was fine. And then Carl was, you would think he'd be more emotional because he was the youngest and the baby of the family and the youngest when he left, but he was ready. I mean, he was like,
Yeah.
this is an adventure and I'm so excited. And his big thing was, can I take Chipper with me? That was our dog. And I was like, what?
Uh,
But we did. We let him take Chipper. But he was just like, he knew what he wanted to do in life and he just went out and did it. So
yeah. Yeah. And birth order may play a part in that too.
yeah.
Jordan's was, I remember we went to PTP the weekend that he moved to school. And it was like there was never really, he had been kind of starting to move things into his new apartment. And um, there was never like this final goodbye. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm going to take this load back down here. And oh, well, we're leaving in the morning. Okay, well, I'll see you next week kind of deal. So we never had that, this is it, formal goodbye kind of thing, which I think I'm probably grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then Jake's was traumatic on, like I said, on all of us, me and John and Micah. And Jake, I remember being pretty stoic, just for whatever, there was people around. And it was a dorm room situation and his roommate was there. And it was just, that was tough. But Micah, kind of like Carl, he's more independent. And I remember taking him, he went to A&M at College Station, which is 2.5 hours. And he was going with friends and uh, Courtney. And so I was comfortable with where he was going, knew that he was going to be around people that I trusted. And I don't remember there being a lot of tears on my part for whatever reason. I think because at that point I knew it's going to be okay. We're going to have a relationship and it's going to be different, but it's going to be okay and it's going to be better and all. But I still feel, I don't know if guilt is the right word. I have some feelings about that, about us leaving him, because there were a lot of things that happened. We were there his first fall. We were still at home, but we were making lots of preparations to go to Denver. And then a lot of things happened over his first year as far as his living situation, his car situation, his job, and a lot of things he had to deal with pretty much on his own. He would call us, but I think I still have some guilt feelings about not being around. Although what his response was when we told him about what we were getting ready to do, and he said, "You do you." It was like, "Oh, y'all go, you do you, I'll be fine." And um, we've talked about it a little bit since then, and I feel like this is a therapy session now. But it's fine. He's 27 now. He's married, has two daughters of his own, and we have confidence that he's still our son. He still calls when he needs something, and it's okay and it's better, and he's grown up and he's our friend. And so you get through it and it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when you guys were making that decision about the big move and him playing a big part in that,
Mhm.
and it didn't keep you from making the move, but I definitely remember you struggling with the whole idea of the timing of it all.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like we were abandoning him in a lot of ways. I have a
Mm.
picture that John took of Micah and me, and I was packing, and I think he was home for the weekend. We were leaving in the morning, and he was going back to school, and just yeah, I'm re-feeling all those feels, but on the side of it now that knows it's okay. I just saw him this morning. He came in for a little while. He left. He's a grown up now, so
Yeah,
it's all good.
it is. It is. Well, the last challenge I want to share is that it's easy to become selfish, I think,
Mm.
in the emptiness, especially if you're not a caregiver yet for aging parents or something. And the reason is because when your children are in the home, they demand your attention in one way or another, either because they're young and they're babies and they need constant care 24/7, or because they're making big life choices in their teenage years, and everything in between. Whether you work outside the home or not, your children, you arrange your life around everything that they need because
Yeah.
they're your responsibility.
Mhm.
And there's a natural, just like I said earlier, they're kind of a natural filter. They're also a natural, you have to think outside of yourself. And mamas know all about sacrifice and giving up time and sleep and energy and whatever it is that our children need from us. But when they leave home, and it's just you and your husband, I think it's really easy to fall into being a little bit more selfish and putting my needs first. And, this is my time. And
Mhm.
maybe tempted to make things more comfortable for self. And I don't want to be put out. I don't want to, you know, all of those things. I think Satan will try and kind of get in there and say, this is all about you now.
Yeah.
And so I just think that that's a challenge, and it's something that we kind of need to watch out for, and look to others and think of others, and still find ways to get outside of ourselves and not be consumed with ourselves, even though it may be easier to do that. Now everybody's
Mhm.
situation is different, what the emptiness looks like and what they're doing and how they feel their time. All I'm saying is, from personal experience, I felt that it was easier to make selfish choices when my kids left home.
That's true. I hadn't really thought about that. But I guess we can still find other people who need, even if we're not caring for parents, maybe that sandwich generation, but there's other people that we can use isn't the right word, but the other people that we can look to that might need our help. There's plenty of other parents who would welcome our babysitting or help with things. So yeah, that's true. It makes me want to look back on my first few years empty nesting and wonder if I was selfish about things. I'm sure I wasn't, right?
I'm sure you weren't. Not ever selfish.
Ever.
Ever.
Never. Okay.
All right. Are you ready to move on to the blessings of the empty nest?
Well, yes, but one question. Do you think that I'm just curious, you kind of touched on it, but you homeschooled, so you were with them literally 24/7, 365. And my kids went to public school. And so I had a little bit more separation or time away from them, I guess. I wonder if it was harder on you. I mean, I don't think there's really an answer to this question, but I wonder for parents who are with their children and are helping to school them all day long, if it makes it a little bit tougher to let go when it's time to let go.
I don't know. Maybe. I was definitely grateful for all of that extra time with them, but just like with most things, there were natural ways that they had jobs, in their teenage years, and camps and internships, and Dale went to Alaska for a summer, and so there were Carl went to Alabama for a summer, with internships. So there were times when they were not separated home for extended periods of time. Yeah. And so we got a little taste of it ahead of time, but
yeah. I don't think there was an answer in that. I was just curious about it.
Yeah.
Okay, move on.
All right. So the positive things. I'm trying to think about things that people might not expect, with the challenges and the blessings, because I think everybody knows it's a bittersweet and it's going to be sad, and a maybe a no duh positive is, more time with your husband and the house is empty and all to yourself. Hello. That's
what are you saying?
I'm saying that's a fun and beautiful thing. And you should make the most of it. That's what I'm saying.
You can play cards.
Exactly. Or put a puzzle together. But one of the positive experiences that I didn't expect could really go either way. And then on the other side of it, I decided it was a positive thing. And it's like the epiphany of my life is half over. Where am I going to go from here? And, depending on how long you had children in the home, we had children in the home from 1993 to 2000 and what did I say? 18.
12. Oh, yeah.
2018. Carl. Yeah, 93 to 2018. And so, that period of time looks different. So the age, I was 46. I just turned 46 when I became an empty nester. And so, I'm thinking by way of a reasonable lifespan, my life is about half over. So
at least.
Yeah. So what am I going to do with the rest of my life? What am I going to do with the time that I have left that God has given me? How can I make the most of that time? How can I make the biggest impact for good in his kingdom? How can I use my talents to his glory, or shine the light, or tell people about his son? I mean, these are questions that you kind of have an opportunity, whether you work outside the home or not. Things are different, and you're handling your time and your space differently. And so it's kind of exciting to sit down and think about, and pray about, spend some time in God's word and pray about how God will use you for the part of your life that doesn't involve taking care of all these little bodies that depend on you. So I think that at the time it was kind of scary.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it, I feel like it was a blessing, and it was a good thing, and an opportunity to kind of think some things through. And I didn't know that was coming.
Yeah.
All I could think about was my kids are leaving home, and this is the end of a chapter, and that's going to be sad.
Identity is the word that kind of comes to mind while you're talking about I think it's easy for it to be our identity. Who, I'm their mom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Jordan's mom, Jacob's mom, Micah's mom. And I think that was who I was for me, it was from 89 until 2016. So what's that, 27 years of
Mm-hmm.
being mom. And it was a role that I loved, wouldn't trade anything for it. But I've had a little bit of time, I guess, that it dawned on me that this is that who I am? Is that not is it all that I am? Because being a mom is, a rich and full existence, but it was okay. Who am I? Am I more than their mom? Yes, you are a child of God, and your responsibility did not to teach and to train and to influence did not end when they left home. It's just shifted to other people, other methods, other means of helping others know the Lord more. So um, I guess I'm thinking that it's maybe something for young moms to think about, to not only be the mom, but to be a child of God, a daughter of the King. Um, you're of course a wife, or you might be an employee, or you're a member of a congregation, but don't be so caught up um, in your identity as mom that you don't see that you have identity in so many other places.
Mm-hmm.
That is a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that makes sense with what you were saying,
Yeah,
but
I
that's
think
where my
so. I
mind
think
went.
so. Yeah. And I think that was kind of what I told you. Somebody approached me about, you probably wonder what your purpose in life is now. And I
Mm.
was like, no.
I still have one.
But it also helped. I became Dean of Women at Bear Valley in 2016
Mm.
and then an empty nester in 2018. So and I was still learning the ropes, of all of that. So it kind of helped me have something to be distracted by and something else to focus on. And plus, when you're in ministry, you always have that role,
Yeah.
and so that helped too. But another one was giving greater attention to your marriage. It seemed like our relationship with each other changed. We tried to stay close because we'd been told that before. Always strengthen your marriage so that when your kids leave home, you're not married to a stranger. We'd been told that
Mm-hmm.
before. But your relationship still changes because it seems like you have an opportunity to enjoy things together that you didn't before.
Mm-hmm.
You might spend time together, but mainly I was taking care of the kids at home, and but after they left, we could figure out what are things that we like to do together with
Mm-hmm.
just the two of us, and more hiking or more playing tennis or you know enjoying those or discovering new interests or trying new things together that you never did before. So what are you grinning about? Did I say something?
No, you didn't. No. I'm thinking of something John said yesterday. I'll get to it in a minute. Keep going.
Okay. So, that's fun and that's a blessing and that more time to just learn. You hope that you keep knowing your husband and keep getting to know your husband because he's always changing too. But there's just something extra special about having that time to yourself to learn even more about each other and grow together and discover those changes that have come along through maturity, life's experiences, and even you mentioned grandchildren already. That's definitely a perk and a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
But even seeing him in that role
Yeah.
is something I never in a million years could have anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
I love everything about it.
Yeah.
And I loved Neil as a dad,
Mm-hmm.
even though there are times in my mind I'm going, oh, that was a little too hard, or oh, I wish you would
Yeah.
have done this, or why don't you, in my mind it's like uptight mommy is watching and everything has to be
Mm-hmm.
done just so. And oh,
The
I don't,
responsibility.
yes, but as a grandparent and seeing pops
Yeah.
interact with his kids, I feel like I'm falling in love with them all over again, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing this amazing side of him. And I love the interaction, and I
Yeah.
love the way his face lights up
Mm-hmm.
when Rich runs to him, and it's just you can't explain it, you can't anticipate it. It is definitely a beautiful blessing of the empty nest. All the ways that you learn about your husband as he's growing too, and life is changing for him, and seeing the man that he's becoming, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's almost like dating all over again, because you're learning about each other. You have to relearn some things, but you're also learning the new things that we're both growing toward together,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I want to say something carefully because I don't want to hurt anybody that has experienced divorce and that's in their past. But I think I want to caution women, young women who are not thinking about something like this, something as simple as grandchildren, because I've thought to myself so many times in the 8 years we've had grandkids, and the many times, like you're saying, you fall in love all over again with your husband by watching him become a grandfather. And what I said earlier about it's like there's no one else on earth that shares what you feel for this little person except John for me and Neil for you. And so this, I guess, is a caution to think about even something as simple like this when you're struggling with marriage and not thinking about things in the future. Think about the fact that um, when you become a grandparent, if you're not still married to your spouse, the father of your children, that's something that you don't get to enjoy with them. You don't get to share that love for that little person. And the last thing I want to do is say something to hurt anybody that has had to go through a divorce. But I guess I want to use it as a motivation. Maybe it's a simple motivation, but to stay together and work things out and stay married and do what you can to maintain your relationship with your husband, because so many things are down the road that you'll enjoy because you stay together. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And it's a good it's the vision. It's the long-term vision.
Yeah.
We're so short-sighted in the moment when we're going through hardships and trials, of any sort, really.
Mhm.
The Bible is always encouraging us to keep the long vision in
Yeah.
mind of heaven, and all of this stuff will fade away when you get there. And I think you're kind of saying something similar of, don't just think about the here and now and the difficulties
Mhm.
of here and now, but think about what lies ahead and how
Yeah.
it'll affect everything.
And it's not just the joy that you share in your love for that little person, but it would mean having to be divided, if you're divorced, if you're separated from your spouse, the grandparent of your grandchild. I don't want to say competing for attention or whatever, but some of that kind of stuff happens. And anyway, we can move on from that because we've moved on to the blessings, and I brought something negative in there, but it just
That's
made me
okay.
think.
That's okay. We're just having a conversation. That's how it works.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. I was thinking about the differences that you learn about your spouse in the empty nest, and some of that is very surprising. I was the one that always wanted a cow, and Neil always said no way, and now he's a farmer. I mean, he just he wears the overalls, and he was the one milking her and taking selfies with peaches. He did that. He did
Who
that. And
knew?
never in my wildest dreams could I have anticipated
Mhm.
that. But that's just one example. There have been so many moments when he has ordered something different, and I'm like, who are you?
Mhm.
I didn't even know you liked that. I thought you didn't like that. Or,
Yeah.
his taste of change in small things and big things. And it's exciting to learn all that. But there's a part of me that thinks, is that really a new development, or was I just not paying
Mhm.
attention before? Because I was distracted and I thought I knew him, but I was taking care of our kids. And did I just miss this? Did I
Mhm.
miss this change in him or this transition? And now I'm paying attention, So either way, um, it's fun to know that you get to learn each other all over again and experience new things together and challenges. And it's like a big adventure in the next chapter. I remember telling Neil, it felt like we had already lived life.
Yeah.
If I die now, I'll die happy. We had already lived life. We've raised our kids. They've grown up. They've left home. They've gotten married. They're starting their own families. But
my life is
we
over.
know our life is over. But we know people who live well into their 80s. We know people who've been married for over 60 years. And when you're looking at your relationship and it's like, we've been married for 30 years already, that could be half of a lifetime, even where we are now. That means we still have potentially, who knows, we potentially could have another half of our lifetime ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems like a lot, and let's say I live another 30 years. Well, 30 years ago, I was a newlywed,
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like a lifetime ago of being this young kid who didn't know what she was doing as a wife, definitely didn't know what she was doing when she became a mother. Neil and I, we expected our first child after only being married for 9 months. So we only had 18 months together with just each other. And really it feels more like the 9 months because I was so sick for my pregnancy. But not much time at all. But when I look back at 30 years in our past, it seems like such a long time and so much has happened. We could potentially have that much time ahead of us.
Yeah. So and what are you going to do with it?
What are we going to do with it? Make the most of each moment. And I can't tell you how many times I've been hit with, I don't want to waste time just watching Netflix in the evening or staring at a screen. Life is too precious. I don't want to look back with regret. I want to make the most of this time that we have now with the people around us that God wants us to love and serve, so that 30 years from now, we're looking at this next stretch of this chapter and smiling, recalling the ways that we grew and enjoyed life together.
Yeah, exactly. And you can pick up and go do things, and you don't have to make sure that there's a dinner at home for your 17-year-old ravenous child. You can go because you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Okay, here's a perk that I didn't think about till just now when you said that. When the kids are home, I felt like I always had to have something green on the plate.
You don't now? You can just eat cereal?
No, we don't. But overall, we typically eat healthy. But there was not too long ago, I made like a homemade beef stroganoff kind of a thing. And I said, do you want me to steam some broccoli or something? Or are you okay with just a bowl of stroganoff? And he was like, I'm okay with just a bowl of stroganoff. And I went, good. But I never would have done that with the kids at home. It would have been like, there's got to be something green in this meal. Yeah, some veggie kind of a thing has to take place here. But as an empty nester, you don't have to worry about that.
And your grocery bill.
Yes.
I mean, you could technically be paying for college or something like that, but
yes,
your eating out bill, your grocery bill is going to go down.
Yes, it is. Yeah, especially when you have boys. And all they want to do is go to the gym and get muscles, and then everything's all about protein. You can't do casseroles anymore because it's all about protein.
Yeah, just tell them it's high protein noodles.
That's right. Oh man. Okay. Do you want to add anything else?
I don't think so.
I'm trying to see if I'll add this one more thing. I was thinking about this too. I just jotted down. Neil, I mentioned seeing Neil's face as a grandfather, but I also love seeing him as a dad to our grown children because that relationship has changed. And I'm pretty sure I've talked about this on here before, but when they were at home, I felt like they came to me a lot, asked me a lot of questions. I felt like I was the one, I'm sure this isn't the case, but I felt like I was the one that was like there for them in the moments of life. When they needed somebody to talk to, they come ask me a question. And I always thought, Neil, you better not be so busy because you're going to want to make sure you have a close relationship with your adult children. And it's kind of like, haha, joke's on you.
Yeah.
Because now the boys are grown and they're men. And guess who they want to talk to? I've never been a dad. I've never been a husband. I've never been the one,
Mm-hmm.
providing for my family, but their father has.
Yeah.
And so they call him all the time. They
Mm-hmm.
text him all the time, and they're always asking him questions, and they know they can talk to him and he will always be there and he will always listen. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Getting to see, it's really humbling to think how, I don't know why I thought as a mom that I needed to tell Neil how to be a dad in the
Yeah.
home. He knew what he was doing. God knows what he's doing with our different approaches to
Mm-hmm.
parenting. God knew what he was doing with all of that, but I digress. But now seeing him with his adult children is, it's so great. I love seeing that
Yeah.
relationship. I love seeing them help their dad with things,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of a two-way street. And that friendship that they have as all adult males with their own families is so beautiful. So that
Yeah.
is another amazing blessing of the empty nest.
I heard a song the other night. I'm going to send it to you. I meant to earlier and I forgot, but it's called "That's My Dad" by Stephen Curtis Chapman. And he's singing about his dad. But when I heard it, I thought, this is how my boys feel about their dad. And at the very end, he says, I watched him make mistakes and I heard him say, I'm sorry. I watched him make a stranger feel like a good friend. If you ask, he'd be the first to say he's far from perfect. But still, if you ask me who my hero's always been, that's my dad. Slowing down a little bit, but his eyes still shine just as bright and kind as they ever did. And he calls me up just to say he loves me and ask me how I've been. And he'll say, remember when? And tell that story again he's told 100 times, and we'll laugh until we cry. Then he'll say, I'll let you go, but before I do, let me say a little prayer with you, and we'll talk to God, and I'll remember how grateful I am. That's my dad.
Mm-mm-mm.
And I thought, wow, that is,
His songs are always tear jerkers.
yes, they are.
That's a good one.
But I thought when you were talking, I thought, I have, I had that, like you said, growing up, they came to me and now they go to him. And I don't begrudge him that.
Oh, I don't
I'm
either.
happy for him to
Mm-hmm.
have that.
Mm-hmm.
And just knowing how they feel about him, when that heart thing happened to John and seeing how quickly they all, seeing how Micah reacted and seeing how quickly Jake and Jordan got here and just knowing how they felt about him was I felt bad for John that he didn't get to see that. I was the one that saw that. And
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to describe it to him, but just can't. So that's a great thing to see what you're talking about, this boy's
Yeah.
relationship with their dad.
And I don't begrudge it at all either. I love it. I'm not jealous of that. I
Mm,
love it. I thank God for it.
yeah.
It's how it's supposed to be. And my role now is, what they want from me is to fix the meals of their childhood that they love, when they come over, or for
Yeah.
birthdays. That's my role. I am happy to fulfill that role. Every now and then, now that they have kids, every once in a blue moon, I might get a question, were we blah, blah, blah when we were this age?
Hmm.
I get that kind of question every now and then, but Neil's the
Yeah.
one that they go to about everything else. Oh, and
Yeah.
ministry, throw that in there too. And he's the one
Yeah.
that they call. So it's
Yeah.
great. All right. Do you want to add anything else?
I don't think so. I'm sure there's things we left off, but
Oh, yeah. This could be a really long conversation if we
mm,
let it. I did want to kind of open this up to anyone listening in. We would love to know what your favorite things are. I thought this would be one that would be great to share in the group if you've listened
mm,
and you are already in this empty nest phase. What have you loved about it? What do you think are the blessings about it? And share it in the Looking Up group on Facebook so that everybody can be encouraged. The ones who aren't there yet will have it to look forward to. Everybody else can be reminded of the blessings of this time of life. And then I also thought, for those of you who aren't there yet, what questions do you have for those of us who are? Go ahead and post them in the group. And um, not just Carla and me, but everybody
yeah.
that's been here can jump in and chime in and share and encourage each other. And I thought that might be a fun thing for us to do with
Yeah.
this topic. So, do you
Right.
have a something good for us?
I do. It's a pair of pants that Costco has right now. So if you have a Costco card, if you can see, it's Modern Ambition is the
Mm-hmm.
brand, and it's a
Okay.
pair of what they called high-rise travel pants. I'm so glad that mom jeans came back. I mean, I never stopped wearing them, but I'm glad that they're back, and I don't feel like, why would you want to wear pants that don't button halfway? Anyway, they're I just got these yesterday. They were like $12.99. So I saw them on the website. Not all sizes are available, but they would still be available in the stores. But they're stretchy and they're thin and they have deep pockets and they
Oh,
have elastic waist. They're perfect for travel or just, riding in the car somewhere on a plane. And they were cheap. Like I said, I think they were $12.99. It says that they're made out of recycled nylon, so you're helping the earth too.
so
And
you do your duty and order these pants.
yes, so on the picture that it shows them being
Like
cropped.
ankle, yeah.
But if you're vertically challenged like I am, they go all the way to your shoes. So they are not
Okay.
cropped on me.
Okay.
So they're travel pants.
How tall are you?
5'2 3/4". Short.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Mom.
All right, mine is an idea. I realize that I'm not drinking as much water, and I never do in the winter because I don't like being cold, and I drink more hot drinks in the wintertime. But I'm really feeling the difference that I haven't been drinking enough water. But what I did is I took a couple of ice cube trays and I took a couple of lemons, and first I zested the lemons into the ice cube trays. Then I squeezed the lemon juice into all the ice cube compartments, and then I cut the lemons themselves into wedges and put one in each tray. And then I took fresh mint leaves and I put them in each tray, and then I topped them all up with water and froze them.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I have that to add to a glass, just to put water in. And it first of all, it makes it look pretty. It's beautiful. The
Mm-hmm.
ice cubes themselves are, but I love that lemony, minty kind of
Mm-hmm.
flavor that it gives the water. And it makes it feel like I've been trending toward the whole San Pellegrino zero
Mm-hmm.
sodas, and first of all, they're expensive.
Yeah.
But secondly, it's made me I'll go at the end of the day and think the only water I had was first thing in the morning when I mixed up my amazing grass drink. That's it. And then all day long, I'm not drinking any water, which is not good. So anyway, I did that little ice cube thing. I'm sure everybody else has already done that, but I haven't, and I loved it. I just pop them out and put them in a Ziploc bag, and then that's what I use for and as the ice melts, you have all
Mm-hmm.
the lemon wedge and the mint. And if you don't want it, it gives it a really good lemon flavor. But if you don't want it as lemony, you don't have to squeeze it or zest it or whatever. But
Yeah, just have the color from the lemon itself.
mm-hmm.
Martha Bluen just drinks hot water in the wintertime. New
Yeah.
Hampshire is seriously cold. She
Mm-hmm.
will, instead of coffee in the morning, just drink a cup of hot water, which more power to her. Warms her up.
Sharon Autry does that too. And she does it year round because she'd come to Higher Ground Camp every year and drink a mug of hot water in the morning.
I wish that sounded appealing to me.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, more power to you, Sharon and Martha.
That's right. Have a good life. Okay, well, enjoyed the conversation, and it was good to see you again. And Carla, until next time.
Keep looking up.
All right, love you, friend.
Love you too. Talk to you later.